So, if I were to ask you right now, which country's economy is the absolute largest on the planet, crossing that mind-boggling $20 trillion mark? Or, whose cultural exports and mega companies literally shape the globe? Or who wields the strongest military power by a landslide? Well, you already know the answer. It's the United States. But setting the stage for a deep dive into our own American history today, we kind of have to step back and ask a really fundamental question. How exactly did the USA become this undisputed global superpower?
Welcome to this in-depth explainer. Today, we're going to trace exactly how the United States climbed to the very top of the global ladder, and critically, what that superpower status actually means for everyday Americans living here right now. We're going to look at the historical timeline, the big geopolitical strategies, and the hard, on-the-ground data to really understand both the rise and the modern reality of our country.
Here's exactly how we'll break it down. First, the rise of a nation. Second, profiting from conflict. Third, Cold War dominance. Fourth, the talent magnet. And finally, the American ground reality. Okay, starting right off with Section 1, Rise of a Nation, the geopolitical ascent.
To truly understand our current dominance, we have to look way back. It all started around 1492 when European explorers arrived, which launched an era of heavy colonization. Now, this devastatingly reduced Native American populations by 80 to 90%, mostly due to introduced diseases. Decades later, of course, we get to 1776, and American revolutionaries declared independence. But the real inflection point for becoming a superpower hit in the 1850s. By then, the democratic setup of the newly formed USA was incredibly attractive. Territories like Florida, Illinois, Ohio, and eventually Texas heavily preferred joining our democracy over remaining under European or Mexican rule. The idea spread like wildfire.
And what's wild is that the sheer scale of this territorial expansion was largely achieved just by throwing money at it. The USA wasn't just attracting states, we were literally buying up immense tracts of land. Get this, in 1867, America purchased the massive territory of Alaska from Russia for just $7.2 million. I mean, that is literally pennies on the dollar for a landmass of that size. We also annexed Hawaii, and in 1898, paid Spain $20 million for the Philippines, though, as you probably know, the Philippines later gained its independence. But the overarching theme here? The bigger the country grew physically, the larger its economy and GDP became.
Moving on to Section 2, Profiting from Conflict, the Economic Shift.
So the crucial pivot in our history happened during the 20th century. While European powers were tragically devastating each other's local economies through two massive world wars, the U.S. mainland sat geographically insulated. We were an ocean away. So instead of having to rebuild bombed-out infrastructure, America became the world's factory, supplying weapons to Europe for a massive net profit. And because Europe was in total chaos, nervous global powers started buying up the stable U.S. dollar to protect their own wealth. All of this culminated in the historic 1944 agreement, where 44 allied countries formally linked their currencies directly to the U.S. dollar.
And following those wars, the United States leveraged this crazy newfound economic dominance to essentially write the rules of the new world. We played a massive role in establishing key international organizations. I'm talking about the IMF, the United Nations, and GATT, which you probably know better today as the WTO. These institutions were heavily influenced by America, and they shifted the global focus away from isolated nationalism directly toward international trade and globalization. And guess who that benefited the most? The massive U.S. economy.
Hey, real quick, if you're finding this deep dive into our history valuable, please take a second to hit that like button, share this with a friend, and subscribe to the channel. It honestly helps us so much to keep creating these explainers for you. And as a quick reminder, if you need them, make sure to turn on the English captions right below the player. We've got full English captions available for this whole explainer. All right, let's get back into it.
Let's look at Section 3, Cold War dominance, the ideological battle. So post-1950, the globe was essentially split between two remaining superpowers, plunging us headfirst into the Cold War. Now, this wasn't a direct conflict, right? It was a giant global ideological proxy battle between capitalism and communism. The CIA actively intervened in foreign governments to stop the spread of Soviet influence. This ranged from funding militants in Afghanistan to executing revolutionaries like Che Guevara in Bolivia. Through all of these global actions, across South America, the Middle East, and Africa, a vast web of geopolitical dependency on the U.S. was created.
And to maintain this Cold War dominance and support key alliances like NATO, the United States built up unprecedented military power. Just to put this into perspective, the physical footprint today is absolutely staggering. There are more than 800 American military bases sitting in over 70 different countries right now. That massive global presence serves as the absolute backbone to our superpower title.
Section 4, the talent magnet, importing innovation. But military and economic force wasn't the only driver. Internal cultural policies played a hugely vital role in building us up. The environment here in the US historically acts as a massive magnet for global talent. We don't just export things, we import brilliant minds. Think about it. Albert Einstein migrating from Germany, Elon Musk coming from South Africa, or brilliant Indian minds like astronauts Kalpana Chawla and Sunita Williams, and Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. This continuous historic influx of top-tier brainpower is a massive cornerstone of American dominance. We attract the best, and they achieve incredible success here.
Which brings us to Section 5, the American ground reality, the domestic truth.
All right, let's pivot here and look at our domestic truth, right here at home. Because despite all this unprecedented global power, we really need to examine the objective ground reality. Being a macroeconomic superpower does not automatically mean wealth is evenly distributed among citizens. In fact, America exhibits some of the highest levels of wealth inequality in the developed world. Look at this data. The top 1% of individuals in this country hoard 42.5% of the entire nation's wealth. That leaves the remaining 99% of us to split the remaining 57.5%.
And because of that, for the average everyday American, the day-to-day experience is heavily burdened by significant socioeconomic challenges. The numbers paint a tough picture. In 2020, home ownership was only at 65.8%, meaning roughly a third of all Americans are stuck renting. Basic necessities are tough to reach. Our healthcare costs are significantly higher than global averages, yet health metrics show unthinkable highs in obesity levels. Plus, the cost of higher education has resulted in literally millions of citizens carrying crippling amounts of student debt.
Compounding these daily domestic struggles is the sobering data regarding public safety and gun laws. Amidst our ongoing national debates over gun legislation, the hard data shows there were over 600 mass shootings in America in the year 2020 alone, which tragically claimed more than 3,000 lives. It is a striking, very serious domestic challenge for the world's most powerful nation.
And when we compare our reality here at home to nations like Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, countries that, by the way, do not spend massively on their military and definitely aren't considered global superpowers, we see a fascinating shift in priorities. The data consistently shows these Nordic countries ranking way higher in overall human development. They boast better averages in standard of living, much easier access to healthcare, and a remarkably higher overall quality of life for the common man.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today. And I really want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to consider. What is the actual, true value of being a global superpower? If massive military strength and unmatched economic dominance don't automatically translate into a better, easier life for everyday citizens, how should a country balance its global ambitions with its domestic realities? Should the dream of being a superpower even be the main goal? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next one.